Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see that it is not just me this week. Um, I have some friends and new friends that have joined me today. We are talking menopause. So disclaimer: anyone that does not want to hear about menopause, I don't recommend leaving because it's important. But just know that we're going to be talking about it. I have been on this journey, and lately I have been fascinated and just wanting to learn more about menopause, like how other people are experiencing it, because I've talked to other people as well, as well as my own experience. I did not know what was happening in my own body, and that is so hard because we have all been told, be your best advocate and, advocate for yourself, tell a doctor what you're feeling. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm feeling. I don't know what's going on. And they don't know how to help you. But I've talked to people that were all in a very similar situation, which makes me feel a little bit better because I'm not alone, but it also makes me feel bad that other people are experiencing this like I am. But so I want to go around the screen and just have you guys introduce yourselves a little bit so that people know why we are here and what we're talking about. If anybody would like to go first, Andrea, would you go first for us?
Sure, sure. My name is Andrea Canny. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm 58 years old and technically, I guess, still going through menopause because I still get the hot flashes. I'm lucky that I haven't suffered too greatly from it, but I'm interested to see if some of the other things that I've been going through in my life, if they're actually related to menopause. Might be interesting to find some of that stuff out.
Oh yeah. Okay. Kathy, would you?
Sure. My name is Cathy Rust. I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I'm 61, so I am the grandma of the crowd. And I have been over and through it, and it was menopause hell. Only sadly, I didn't realize that probably three-quarters of the things that were happening to me were probably due to my hormones changing. So yeah, so that's my quick story in a nutshell.
Mm, gosh. Okay. Paulina, you would be next in the counterclockwise, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm Polina LeRoy. I'm a medical intuitive and holistic wellness coach for women. And I myself, I think, entering perimenopause. At least that's what I feel like. And I've been working with women with menopause for over several years. I definitely have about like 8 probably interesting case studies. And I honestly love what you mentioned, what Andrea mentioned, and I would like to share my experience, what I see, and uh, tell me if we're going to be allowed to share controversial opinion here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
Okay, good.
we got to learn. We got to learn. That's really important, right? I mean, it's not just dramatic, right? It's this real stuff.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. And where are you, Paulina?
I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay. All right. And Miss Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Boat. I am a certified menopause coach, consultant, and host of the podcast Transforming 45. Like everyone else here, this what we're talking about tonight is my story, right? It's all of our stories. When I was an educator for 20 years. Like most people going through COVID, we started really thinking about how do we want the rest of our lives to be. And at that time, my kids were in their late teens. So my whole mothering role was changing. The education world I was living in was becoming untenable. And so I resigned and started working with women in the empty nest space. And while doing that, I take a holistic approach to everything. And so physical symptoms were always coming up, and being curious and noticing these things happening in my own body, I wanted to learn more. So I took the menopause coaching certification, and it is the most important learning I have ever done. And working through it, I was constantly surprised by all of the things that we do not know about our bodies. And so I realized, not that I would change my decision to leave education, I wouldn't. There were lots of factors. However, perimenopause was playing a huge role in a lot of what I was experiencing, and I didn't know it. And so that's where my focus really is supporting women to either stay in their workplace and in their careers, but have a menopause empowered workplace. Or if staying isn't right for them, then we figure out what's going on with their body and what their next step is. So that's it.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Whew. Okay. So with that out of the way, I prepared a few questions just to sort of start conversations, because we all have thoughts on this. I know that. So let's see. And so this is my podcast. I make my own rules, as I've been told. But so we are going personal sustainability today, 100%. And I am 100% down with this. I've been talking about this for about 9 months. So here we are. And I'm so glad that you guys are all here with me. So the first question that I wanted to ask was, I know I sort of brought this up, but what was your understanding about menopause before, whatever happened? Like, I know for me, it was, you stop having your period and you probably have some hot flashes. That doesn't sound so bad, right?
Speaking for myself, I mean, my mom was 37 when she had me, so I was still younger when she went through menopause. But coming from a typical English Irish family, we didn't talk about emotions, important stuff. I don't think I ever got a sex talk, to be frank. I really don't think so. And so it was never really talked about, to be honest. And I did remember like kind of rumblings about like mom either being cranky or, maybe a little bit more emotional or something like that. And it was supposed to be something to do with being a woman. But, we were totally unaware because everybody you just don't talk about that stuff. And, medically, apparently that's the case too, is a lot of medical professionals, especially men, do not want to bring it up to people. And so, other than finding your information out by investigating it, I certainly had I guess I had what you would call a sitcom knowledge of it. It was exactly that. It was just like all the typical, oh, she's being cranky or bitchy, she's crying out, off the hat or off the bat, and she's going to have hot flashes. That was about it.
Andrea, I love how you use that term, the sitcom version, because I often talk about hot flushes and night sweats as being the punchline, right?
Mhm.
Those symptoms are often the punchline of the joke, and the bitchiness, all of those things, they're punchlines, and yet they are not. The hot flushes and night sweats are vasomotor events. There are cardiovascular systems saying things are happening in here and we need to start paying attention. And so having them as the butt of the joke really minimizes, right, what they actually are doing in our body. And I think it's so important to, yes, we have to have a sense of humor. Otherwise, we would be crying all the time. So yes, I understand the sense of humor, and let's not minimize symptoms that are really significant and wreaking havoc inside of our bodies.
And I think that goes back to when we were at the beginning of our hormonal experience, as a teenager, that's also minimized. Anything
Right.
to do with a woman and her health or her body.
Are you on your period?
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, she's just, oh, you're being such a bitch, you must be on the rag. Like,
Right.
how many times did we hear that in junior high? And you're like, oh, believe me, I will tell you some things about being on the rag if you really want to open a conversation.
Right.
Like, do you really want to poke me today? But it's
But
always
there's
about,
also like we have there's education on like the teenage, the hormonal situation and getting your period and stuff like that. Like, people have conversations, the sex talk, right? No one tells us about this time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, I keep wondering, where in my entire experience could I have learned that information? Because part of it was vanity, thinking, well, nothing's going to happen to me anyway, and I don't want to learn about it because if I learn about it, that means I must be getting old. Because you always think of the Golden Girls, and if you look at J-Lo versus the Golden Girls, if you remember that meme that was around a couple of years ago. And so in my head, old people went into menopause, and this is something that happened once they were grandmas and all of that. And it had nothing to do with me in my 40s and 50s. And so it was a real shock when I look back in hindsight of just how much of my health issues had actually been linked to menopause, and really being completely unprepared for what was about to hit me. Because in my mind, actually, I read Halle Berry said the same thing. I'm healthy, therefore I will not have any problems in menopause. And that's exactly how I felt. I was physically fit. I ate really well. I was great mental health wise. And I thought I'd be totally fine. And in fact, it was farthest from the truth. So,
Right.
yeah.
You
It's
said you had
terrible.
to stop drinking wine. Is that right?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh God. It's like I wish, like, yes, I did, but it's like more than that. And fortunately, from time to time I can have a glass of wine now, but it turns out that menopause actually uncovered the fact that I have a congenital heart defect, that I thought I was getting palpitations, and I ignored them because I just figured that they were a menopause symptom. And then it turned out that I actually had this massive hole in my heart that had gone undetected for 56 years. So, and then there've been repercussions from that. So all of that was due not to menopause, but I attributed my heart palpitations to menopause because that was one of the symptoms that I knew about. So yeah, it's menopause is bizarre, and we really need to educate ourselves. And as I read in some of the research, we have not done enough research on women, and most of the scientific studies have been done on healthy adult males because, we're only half the population, if not more.
Well, how different can we be, right?
Yes, exactly.
I love that you mentioned Halle Berry though, because I recently saw that she's actually speaking out about it. And if it takes a gorgeous actress to use her platform, then so be it. If it helps the general
Absolutely.
public, you know?
Yeah, there is this wave that's happening right now, and I
Yeah.
say this a lot, and I feel like it is the work of women of our generation to bring this topic forward, right? Every generation before us has had their issue that they worked on, and I think this is ours. And we're seeing that. And sometimes I forget, like I live in the menopause world, so I hear it all the time, and I sometimes lose perspective that it still is not part of the sort of main dialogue that's happening out in the world. But there are some really fabulous leaders who are coming forward and making some significant strides, which is exciting to see, and it's a reminder that we have a long way to go.
I
Right.
did listen to, I think it was in March, I was trying to look it up here, a Mel Robbins podcast episode where she
Oh
talked
yeah,
a doctor who is a woman, because I mean, I'll scroll on TikTok and I'll see these guys who, I don't want to hear from you fuckers about menopause. Shut up. Just shut up. I want to hear it from a woman,
yeah,
who's not only a doctor, but may have already gone through it herself too, And
yeah.
this woman, that was a great episode. I'll try to find it and I'll
It's with Dr. Mary Haber, and she is one of the people who's leading the work. And this week, there was a study that was just released by Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who's a neurologist, and she is doing some incredible work. And I was listening to her talk about the study. And so she was talking about how to image women's brains have never been imaged in a way that could trace the way estrogen impacts the brain.
mhm.
And so before she could even get to finding the research, she had to develop how to create a tracer that would do that. So they had to start there. So after 5 years, I believe she started just prior to COVID. So now they've done the imaging of brains. And as women move through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, the number of neurotransmitters on the brain actually increase. The ones that are receptive to estrogen increase as estrogen decreases.
Mm.
So when you think about what the implications of that are, that you've got this brain that is hungry, right? Like that shows us that your brain is hungry for estrogen because it's trying to create more neurotransmitters to attract estrogen, which isn't there. And so that is part of the reason, like that's the structure in the brain that's happening for why we're experiencing the symptoms that we're experiencing. But that we just know that now is, it's good. I'm glad that we know that now. And yeah, we should have known this a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Women have been suffering for generations in silence because
Yes.
no one cared enough to, it's just what we do.
Well, I mean,
Well,
go ahead.
Amy, I'm not sure. I think part of it is that our my generation and before, and I think that, as Lisa said, it's better for the generation below me, which is that they are not putting up with this bullshit of staying silent. But my generation learned from our parents to suck it up and move on and not do anything about it. And in my case, my migraines were so bad right as I hit my 1 day of menopause that I was working 3 days a week because I would have migraines for the other 4 days a week. So I would work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and basically be in bed Friday through Monday with just the worst migraines you've ever had. It was just horrific. So I think it's about time that women said, this is ridiculous. We're reaching the point in our life where our kids are growing up and don't need us as much. We're about to go into the peak earning years of our career. And then we get hit with this whammy of physical and mental issues that we're kind of going, what the heck is happening? Like, I don't get this. And yeah, it can cause marriage problems. It can cause work problems. It's imperative that we learn how to deal with this in a real scientific way so that we can help men and women together just cope with those changes that we have never really properly addressed in the past. So there you go. There's my little soapbox.
Woo! Enter Lisa. Yeah, exactly. And I think that, Cathy, I learned from you about menopause being 1 day. Like,
well, my favorite was when so Amy was interviewing me for sustainability. We were talking about my business and my product because I am an environmentalist at heart, and so she brought me onto the show, and I started talking about, well, this is how we make our sleepwear, and this is why we do it, and it's to solve night sweats. And all of a sudden, Amy comes in and she says, "Wait, what? It's about menopause?" And I kept trying to get onto the sustainability track, and Amy kept bringing me back to, no, I want to hear more about menopause. I want to hear more about your experience.
Let's go deeper. What is this about? Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, it's crazy how little information there is.
Yes, exactly.
That's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I remember, and so let's see, well, I guess we can, I mean,
I'm curious that Polina, like what being a medical intuitive, like how did you, what were your preconceived notions about it?
Wow, I didn't know much about it. Like you guys, I totally find myself and my generation being uneducated properly about not just menopause, but about women's body in general. What our bodies, what's the difference between our bodies and men's bodies, right? And what are unique features that our bodies have and how to properly take care of them. I had no idea. And I think I can't blame my mom because she didn't know either, right? She didn't get proper education as well. That's why I find myself being on a mission to write a book about women's body. And I want to pass it to my daughter. My daughter is 3 years old right now. Mm-hmm. And I want to write a book as a message from me to her about, here's your woman body. You have this body. here's how you can take care of it. Because, you know, I found our bodies being so different from male body. We have so many differences that are not addressed by our healthcare system, unfortunately. And then unless we start educating ourselves and advocate for our needs, for our unique needs, we're going to be suppressed by this patriarchal society we live in, because the society that we live in doesn't care about our unique needs. They don't give a fuck about our problems, but we do have problems. And one of the indications, I think, is take a look at the rates of autoimmune conditions.
Yeah.
Do you know that among 50 million of women, of people who are diagnosed with autoimmune conditions, 80% are women? So that's the problem that have to be addressed. But who's talking about it? So it comes down to our differences that, like, they are natural for us, but in the society we live in, and, you know, talking about environment, that's the problem we have to deal with on a regular basis. And that's the consequences of us not being properly educated about our bodies, right? So the problem that nobody's talking about is how our hormones fluctuate and how it affects our immune system. And that women's immune system is pretty much down to 30%, right? 30% of the time. It's not functioning properly. So we are left to be attacked and, you know, very vulnerable to viruses. And we have so many viruses in our environment. And men don't have to deal with it. They don't have those issues. We do. That's why so many women suffering with all these autoimmune conditions, and how many women are not being diagnosed properly and being dismissed by the healthcare practitioners because, oh, it's nothing, you'll get over it, it's all in your head, right? But those symptoms are real. And because they're not being addressed properly, women get worse and worse and worse. And then there's a menopause and another, you know, hormone imbalances in the body. And then the body wasn't properly taken care of for many years, for decades. And now we have, you know, this hormone imbalances associated with menopause. And we have so many symptoms that technically not menopause symptoms, but because it all comes together, you know, we have so many symptoms that so hard to deal with. Because I think one of the aspects that I think Lisa mentioned, and unfortunately I don't know about your perspective, and then I would like to learn, but I know that it's not only hormones, right? Yes, that's the main thing that should happen, but another aspect that not many doctors talking about is viral load in the body and the liver condition. Those two things gonna make your menopause and you miserable. But if we would learn about those aspects, we could address them prior to getting menopause symptoms. And who knows, we might minimize those symptoms or eliminate them completely. But nobody's talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So everyone is trying to figure it out by themselves.
Yeah. And I think you really hit on the holistic nature. Like, we have to look at the whole body as an integrated system, every element of it, and not separate out. Like, we can't just talk about the uterus and hormone production in isolation, right? We have to look at the system of, like, the whole integrated system of the body. And it's why it's so important for young women to be having these conversations as well, right? Like, early on when I was doing this work, I had a girlfriend who's about 10 years younger than me say, Lisa, you say perimenopause, and I just turn out because it's not something I need to know about. And I said, sister, you need to know about this now. Actually, you needed to know about it 20 years ago. This is not a conversation just for women in their 40s. Because, like you said, the more we know how to take care of our body, right? Like, there's the core four, as there are for all health and wellness. So nutrition, movement,
absolutely,
yeah, my own perimenopausal brain just kicked in there. um, the underlying pinnings of all
Sleep,
health and wellness. Yes. And so Cathy, like you said, you can be, yes, you can be fit and you can be feeling really good going into it, and you will still be impacted. And when you have a strong foundation of those routines in place, sleep, stress management, movement, and nutrition, when you have a strong foundation, you have a deeper well to draw from. Right. So, but when we come into these massive body renovations, that's the way I like to refer to them, and our well is dry and we're already depleted, we don't have the energy that we need for our bodies to reconstruct themselves the way they need to.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I learned so much from you, Lisa. Just the one workshop that I did, and then my one-on-one with you. But I've been learning. Oh my gosh, there are so many podcasts about menopause right now. But so I'm listening to them all. But I've learned, that estrogen is not just like estrogen affects every part of our body. It's not just your reproductive, it's entire body, like you were saying with the brain, but like your muscles and joints and like all the stuff. It's crazy. And then, so how, of course we're going to have a hard time. But
well, let's talk to this, add to this problem with xenoestrogens, right? With the fake artificial estrogens that actually can cause so many problems along the way, right? And if the liver is not able to absorb from the bloodstream and remove it from the body, we're going to have another range of symptoms, right? And that's environmental problem. All these environmental toxins that we expose to, they can definitely exacerbate our symptoms.
Right. Oof. Intense. It's intense. And I think I told you, Lisa, when we were talking, like, I feel like when we turn 40 and we're supposed to start getting mammograms, like, why isn't there like a book or a booklet or, something that a doctor can say, they don't have to say, talk about menopause, just like, here, have this book, you're about that age. And it's like, it's a rite of passage, like, be on the lookout. But yes, and of course, Polina, like, we should be healthier going in. It doesn't always work that way, unfortunately, but and it's I think there's also so many things that we are not warned about, like, people say, you want your heart to be healthy, blah, 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 and people are like, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's the, live now and suffer later, or live now and life is too short. But there's not the, make sure to take good care of yourself. And people say, oh my gosh, why are you so lame? But take care of yourself, because the rest of your life depends on this time. And like you were saying, also, I can't remember who it was, but I have a friend who started going through menopause in her mid-30s. And so, even the book, what you get when you start having mammograms, is too late. But it's just wild.
Yeah, we really should be learning about how our female body functions right from the beginning. Like, when we are having the puberty conversation, we need to look at the entire life cycle of a woman and what happens in each section, right? Because I remember learning about grade 11 health class, and we're talking about the menstruation. And my teacher said, yeah, and then one day you'll hit menopause and your period stops. And that was the end of the conversation. And we were all like, hey, great, that's something to look forward to.
Right?
Like, great. Well, we will all be celebrating when menopause comes around. And there is an element of that, right? Like, there is an element of, and when you use the word ritual, it really triggered something in me. And that I think we need to give more time again to ritual and to acknowledging and giving space and love and care for each other as we are going through this time. So, there are rituals that happen when a girl first gets her period, right? Depending on where you are in the world or what your family tradition is. But one of my girlfriends, she's like, my daughter just got her period. And so I went and I got her, this basket of things that will help her take care of herself. So there's some ritual in that. And we need to bring some ritual back to menopause as well. And yes, celebrating the joyful elements of it, as well as absolutely acknowledging the things that are really hard.
Yeah, I love your perspective, Lisa, and definitely the joyful aspect. God, that's why I'm saying I'm looking forward to it, because I read recently about Chinese medicine perspective. You know what they call it? They call it second spring.
Oh,
of
yes.
women.
Yeah.
That's
Second spring or second youth. And they talk about the connection between heart and uterus, and then how many energy usually goes from heart to our uterus when we have our periods. And we kind of dump this energy and we lose it during our periods. But when the uterus stops bleeding, right, we don't have any of our periods anymore, all this energy stays in the heart. And then another interesting moment they're talking about is that women kind of get closer to the truth, they true selves, and they lose this need to conform and people please, and they find this freedom to speak their truth and be who they truly are, right? And that definitely resonates with me. If this is, what aspect of menopause I'm looking forward to, definitely this. And I think I can feel this energy in me, definitely, that I no longer want to fit in. I don't want to please man. I want to be myself, and I want to, speak my truth. And I don't care who agree with it or not. And I think sometimes divorces around that age happens also because women initiate them, because women say, I no longer want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a woman on my show a while ago now. Her name is Shoshana French, and she was talking about, the archetypes of the woman, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And well, like the crone is this beautiful, very wise time, but there actually is a stage in between motherhood and crone, and that is queen. And I feel like that really is where that like perimenopause, menopause time lies, because the queen is a leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is standing gloriously in her power, and she is leading herself. And in doing so, she is leading all of her community around her. And I really love that sort of visual. And I've been also trying to like come at this in a more playful way, because I can get very serious, right? I'm an educator. My academic brain kicks in. I get real serious about things. And there is a beautiful playfulness of this time that is coming back around. And so I started referring to it as like, let menopause be the hot girl summer of your cycle. Like we're already hot, we're already sweating. We might as well just lean into that and let ourselves like feel all of that like goddess queen energy that also is there.
Yeah. I think of it kind of like, with Taylor Swift and her Eras tour. I've definitely entered my era of I don't have two fucks to give. I just don't.
Yeah. I mean, so
Like-
and I had heard somebody say that estrogen is it's like the nurturing hormone. And so as the estrogen drains from us, as we lose it, we lose those fucks. We just don't have them anymore. So it's like we lose that nurturing part of us, and we're like business, like let's get this done.
Wanda Sykes has a fabulous stand-up bit that is all around what you just said, Amy. It's great.
Maybe that's where I heard it. I don't remember with all the things I've been listening to. Yeah, and so let's see. So what has your experience been? I mean, we've sort of talked about that a little bit, but so like I'll just say mine, I mean, my libido dropped like to 0, and I was talking to my doctor, and I was like, I don't know, sex hurts and I just don't feel it, and 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 then the response is not helpful at all. But I had apparently been in perimenopause for quite a while because and I didn't know it because I was on birth control and I was having very regular periods. I'm like, well, everything's working great. What's wrong with me? And I'm completely broken. And that was like, that was me like afraid to disappoint my husband, afraid to like just ruin everything. And at the same time, like no one was willing to help me. And I didn't know what it was. But now it's like super fun. Like,
I think, Emmy, I'm sorry about what happened between you and your husband, but I think there is a blessing in it. And I think you were unwillingly, but you were forced to step into your power and actually turn yourself towards who
right.
you are, what you want, towards your health, right? Yeah, we usually don't want to do those things, but we usually forced
Right.
to face them.
And that's
what
typical of
happened.
me, right? I'll
Yeah.
just keep going until something, I'm forced to stop. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that totally. Like I'm feeling more in my power and like more excited about life, I think. Like not necessarily that my life wasn't exciting, but just like these changes that are happening. Like, okay, let's do it. Let's get going. But yeah, like and I asked my doctor specifically about birth control, like the oral birth control pill. Like I was like, does it work because it makes you not want to? Or does it work because it's changing things inside of you? Like, and he said, no,
I think it does both.
yeah, he
I
said,
might have unpopular opinion, but I think it does both.
I believe
Oh
that.
yeah, birth control has significant internal impacts. Like that's what it does, right? It changes your whole chemical structure so that your eggs won't implant, right? So it has really significant impacts on our experience. And one of the things that women will say to me is that when they go to a healthcare practitioner, one of the first things that is prescribed to them is either birth control or an antidepressant. And I know, Polina, right? And that's not the answer, right? I'm not going to say that an antidepressant is never the answer because I never want to speak in terms of definitives. Every woman's journey is so different and they need to be addressed in the way that is best for them. But birth control and antidepressants should not be the first response to someone coming in with menopause and perimenopause symptoms. There are so many other ways that will actually look at the root causes of what's happening in your body. And birth control will only continue to mask and it will not improve your life.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for saying this. I totally agree with you, Lisa, because I think it's concealing the problem. Nobody's addressing the root cause of those symptoms. Nobody's trying to figure out what's exactly causing them. Oh, we'll just give you birth control pills and it will just make it look like you're fine.
Yeah.
What surprises me about that though is that now it's talked about so much, yet nothing has changed. Because that was, I mean, I had my anti-anxiety meds because of the divorce were doubled. But the anti-anxiety is also a depressant med, so it just balances the chemicals. But I don't know. I'm like this guinea pig that's getting it all.
So many symptoms, unfortunately, mental health symptoms like anxiety and depression, and sometimes rage, right? And inability to regulate our emotions tied to the liver. And what we do by giving women drugs like anti-anxiety or antidepressants is that we actually, short term, it might help, it might cover up symptoms, but long term, if we're looking at this, all the drugs there keep overloading the liver. And if we're talking about liver being the main cause of them, because liver can't contain all the toxins, and then we just add more and more and more.
Right.
Well, even outside of menopause, I mean, because I was on the pill for a long time, and then I finally was like, shit, I'm not having sex anyway. But you're not supposed to be on it for all that long, really, because technically you're going to start having babies, and that was like a nothing for me. but I finally just went off of them because I was like, well, I'm not even in need of it. But when you think about that you're not supposed to be on it that long, why would that be one of the first things that they try to put down your gullet, you know?
Mhm.
It's
I
an
do
easy.
want to I do want to say, in a time where women's reproductive health is being attacked, that it's really important, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, like we have every option available to us, right? And that we make and that's what's so important when it comes to women's health, that all of the options need to be available to us so that we can be treated in the way that is best for our bodies. And that's been the trouble with, Paulina, when you're talking about the patriarchal structure, that's absolutely it. Like the patriarchy is looking for everything to be the same. And so when they're doing medical studies and they're looking for consistent sample group, women are not it because there is no consistency. So instead of shifting the model and looking at more individualized, how do we create individualized care plans? We were just trying to be made to fit into a box that was never, ever going to fit. And so I think, Amy, like you were saying, that's where the work really needs to happen now, right? Is a real drive towards education so that everyone knows and understands what's happening in their own bodies, and so that everybody in general knows what's happening in women's bodies. And then personalized care, because no two women will have the same experience.
And the same symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I started down this journey because after all the migraines hit, I thought that the minute, here's my naivete again. I thought that the minute I had my one day of menopause, ta-da, done, I'm done. Everything's good. I will go back to normal. Everything will be fine because you don't know anything. And so that's your assumption. And in my case, what happened was I started getting night sweats, and then the night sweats were fine at the beginning. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? No, I'm finished menopause. I don't get these. And in fact, about a year later, they started fast and furious until I was an absolute basket case. And it was really, really affecting my sleep more than anything. And then because my sleep was going downhill, my anxiety started going up, and I started worrying about, am I going to get dementia because I can't sleep? And I started reading books on sleep, and I started reading Lisa Mosconi, The XX Brain, and my anxiety was just going through the roof. And I cut out all of my social interactions with people because I was so tired. The only thing I could think about was tonight I'm going to get asleep. And this went on and on and on until I finally had to take the bull by the horns and really address the problem head on. And it was terrible that I let myself suffer for as long as I did, because I just felt that it would A, go away, and B, this should not be happening to me. That is literally how ignorant I was of the types of symptoms that could happen to you and at what stage in this phase of your life. And we really should just call it a natural phase of a woman's life. We don't really think of it that way, but that's what it is. And I think if we approach it in that respect, this is a natural phase of our life, it doesn't mean your life is over, then I think that women will be more prepared to learn about it and educate themselves about the changes that are going to happen to them. Anyway, that was my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that so many of you guys associate night sweats with menopause, but it doesn't have to be this way. I can tell you how many men I have as my clients who have night sweats, and they in their 30s. So it's not actually menopause symptoms. It's a symptom of overloaded liver, struggling liver. It happened to be around the same time when women get in their 40s, 50s. That's what usually liver is being so overloaded that, we tend to associate with menopause, but it's not menopause symptoms. Sometimes my husband has night sweats and hot flashes. That's not menopause. He's not in menopause, it's liver. So we need to address the liver. We need to help liver. Mm-hmm. And, it can be so misleading because we attach this symptom to menopause. So many women might think, oh, I'm in my menopause, where in fact they're in their 30s and they not even close to menopause. but they will think, oh, I'm probably in my menopause. Night sweats, from my perspective, from everything I know about bodies, it's all about the liver. We address the liver through gentle liver detox, and night sweats go away and hot flashes go away.
Yeah, I think there's room for both of those. Like there is no denying that when estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating, it makes everything else more difficult to function in the body, right? Because it impacts every single system.
Definitely.
And when a vasomotor event is happening, there's opening, right? So there's excess heat in the body, or again, here we go. It's 6, almost 7, and my perimenopausal brain is like, we're shutting down your vocabulary center now. but so heat is being released, and the liver connection also, I see that as being really strong, because one of the things is alcohol, right? So alcohol has a significant impact on menopausal and perimenopausal symptoms. So I know if I have a couple of glasses of wine, guaranteed I will have hot flashes that night. And so my liver is having to process all that additional chemical that I've put into the body in combination with the fluctuations of my hormones that are happening. And we get this result, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you.
Wow, I love this conversation. I'm getting so much out of this. And I know that one of the I've started listening to a podcast called Menopause Reimagined with Andrea Donner, I think is her name. And
Donsky?
Donsky, yes.
Yeah.
Did
She
you
has
tell me
We
about
Are
her?
Morphus.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might have, yeah. Yeah, they have a supplement company called We Are Morphus.
Right.
Morphus. Yeah.
The first episode that I listened to of her podcast, they were talking about she's doing all kinds of studies, and one of the studies is, talking to as many women as possible and what symptoms they're experiencing. And so it turns out there are like 100 plus different symptoms that people could be experiencing during perimenopause and menopause, which is just insane. And I remember one of them was like phantom smells, and I was like, what? But then I remembered like walking the dog, and I'm like, why do I smell chicken soup? For real. Uh, but so it's just it's beyond my brain capacity that there are 100 different symptoms that could be experienced, and how could anyone possibly just say, oh, that's menopause? And it's almost like, whatever you're experiencing around midlife, you can just say, it's menopause, why not? But I don't have any information, like education, to back that up. But when I heard that, I was just like, oh my gosh, it could be almost anything.
Another example, Amy, of how little we really know and understand. I have, and based on these unique symptoms, a friend of mine was telling me that she was having a really difficult time just walking because she was getting really terrible burning feet. And she wanted to do this marathon in like 8 or 9 months' time. And she said, the problem is I can't train for it because my feet are burning so badly. And I said, oh, who have you talked to about that? And she said, well, I've been to the neurologist, I've been to my doctor, I've been to the chiropractor, I've been to blah, blah. And she lists, because she keeps getting bumped from one doctor to another and one specialist to another. And so I'm thinking to myself, wait, on Andrea Donsky's website, there's the list. And so I look in and I go, burning feet, menopause, and there is one of the symptoms. And it turns out that it's, I believe, a lack of B12. Is that right, Lisa? Something along those lines. There's some sort of menopausal cause or vitamin deficiency that causes this burning feet in people. And I'm thinking, oh my God, if we just knew this, imagine how much money we could save the healthcare system, and how much more quickly women could solve this problem if they thought, oh, you know what, I'll bet this is a symptom of menopause. But we're all in the dark. And so we don't know until we actually start taking it seriously and saying, okay, what could this be menopause? But not even her doctors and professionals even considered it an issue of menopause, symptom of menopause.
Well, it doesn't have to be menopause symptom. I'm wondering, Rose, if those symptoms build up. Okay, there's a list of symptoms. How many of them actually caused by menopause? It can be that, as Lisa said, the fluctuation of hormones affecting the rest of the body and immune system is down, because from what I know, burning sensation is definitely neurological, right? It happens to our neurons, and the neurons being inflamed, and what's causing this neurological inflammation? That's probably low-grade viral activity. And yes, lack of vitamin B12 definitely could be a factor. So, you know, it's not necessarily menopause, but low-grade viral activity that can be addressed with proper diet and adding supplements like B12. Definitely can be lack of B12. Magnesium can be lack of magnesium as well.
Yeah.
But if we're not addressing the root cause, which is still low-grade viral activity, just adding those supplements not going to help, I think.
Well, probably, you know, I think that probably menopause, that age and stage in our life and this fluctuation of hormones probably triggers a lot of these sensitivities that our bodies have been able to withhold and put off until that point. And then we reach that point in our lives where our hormones are naturally fluctuating, and all of these other symptoms are now showing their ugly head, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why positioning menopause symptoms as messages from the body is really what's important, right? So whether we give it a menopause, perimenopause label or not, it is a time where our body is demanding our attention, right? So as women, we often, you know, Amy, you've talked about it. Andrea, you've talked about it. We all have, right? How we just soldier on. Doesn't matter what our body is telling us. We're like, yeah, we'll deal with you later. And we just keep going until we get to this point where the body's like, so how do you want to do this now? Right? Like, you want to continue ignoring me?
Yeah.
Cool, but it's not going to be great. Or
we're gonna have conversation right now.
Yeah, exactly. So when you just start listening to your body and going, my feet are itchy, or one of my strangest ones is my ears are really, really itchy. Right? So itchy ears, they're now thinking that possibly could be because of drying membranes, right? So vaginal dryness, those membranes are also starting to dry in my ears. So I need to start paying attention to that, right? I need to start paying attention to what the membranes of my body are telling me, and I need to make sure they're getting more moisture, and then I'm giving more care to these elements of my body that I've totally ignored for 47 years. Right. So that's really where the power is, in listening to the body and going, you know, like I said earlier, with when I have night sweats, if I drink wine, I know I'm going to have them. Okay, that's something I've put together for myself. I'm going to avoid doing that. And then I can start some healing can start happening in my body. And so that's really where the power lies.
Or sometimes you make a conscious decision. I'm going to have a glass of wine, and I'm going to have a crappy sleep. And sometimes just knowing that, it's like, okay, tonight it's not going to be a great night, but it's worth it for me. But you have to be very conscious now in the decisions that you make around stuff that never used to bother you before. So that's the part that just shocked me, was how deliberate I have to be about everything now, the choices that I make.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I think as Lisa mentioned, I think it's a great point that when I look at, you know, women in their 20s and 30s, most of them, they can get away with so many things. They can eat unhealthy and they won't have any problems. Where the problem is actually that all the, you know, the problems they cause in themselves, they're invisible for some time. Right? The body still has resources to buffer this, to deal with this. And although it's compromised, it's being compromised, so many functions like immune system, the liver being compromised, it's all building up, adrenals, but it's invisible. For some time, it's invisible to us. And then when we get close to 40, 45, 50, it's no longer can be sustained, right? It's no longer can be controlled. It's kind of going over the roof, and body has no more resources to keep it controlled. And that's why we're forced to face it. We're forced to learn about body, and we're forced to listen to the body and actually communicate it.
Yeah. I think there's so much truth to that, Paulina. I'm actually seeing a functional medicine person, and we're working on cleaning out my liver. And I think, you know, your liver can only take so much, and then eventually it's just like spitting it back out or whatever, you know, because the liver will like sock away your estrogen and other hormones. And like I started talking to this functional medicine lady at Podfest, of all places. But when we were talking, I was like, you know, one of the things that really drew me in, and I was like, oh, she's like the real deal. I have such crappy teeth. And she was saying, you know, you haven't slept for like 35 years. Your body is under a huge amount of stress, and when it's stressed, it takes the minerals from your teeth and your bones. I'm like, come on. Like, that's just it makes so much sense. And so the whole liver thing, like we're working on that. And it's hard. It's hard, but it makes so much sense that the liver is finally just like, whoa, you know, I cannot protect you.
Enough.
Yeah, I can't protect you anymore. Like, I cannot take any.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I know Cathy just said what surprised you the most about menopause. You were saying how deliberate you need to be about everything. And when you said that, it made me think my mother-in-law has an allergy to some, like, it's like a chemical that's in a lot of cleaners and a lot of foods that are produced in stores. And so she has to be super duper careful, and just like nothing from the outside is coming in without being inspected. So it makes me think of that very much. But everyone else, like, what have you experienced? What was the most surprising thing for you about menopause?
Surprising. I think for me, it's that position of I'm not sure if it's just, you know, I used to be very young and very fit because I was a dancer for a long time. And you know, when you're young, you're made out of rubber. If you gain 5 pounds, you change your eating habits for a week and then you lose it and it's fine. And you can do those bad habits and your body's fine. But then once I stopped working out on a regular basis and stuff, of course, then I started gaining the weight. Then I was getting older, gaining weight for all the different reasons. But I'm assuming the issues that I'm having, like with my shoulder, is from menopause, because I don't recall an actual time that I injured it. And this one, I like, you know, I can raise that one just like that. It's fine. This one, like, that's when it starts hurting.
Yeah, frozen shoulder.
Yeah, I have that too. Out of the
And
blue.
like, if I, you know, you lose your balance somewhere, like you hit a pebble or something, if I do like a jerk response, it's like searing pain. And I'm like, I'm assuming that's from menopause, and that one surprised me the most, I think.
I had that. It was awful. So
yeah, I think for me it was the silencing and the shame. And maybe surprising isn't the word. Like, when I look back on it, or not look back on it, even like I'm in it, I'm in it. I'm like, well, of course, there's so much shame, and of course, we're trying to shut down the conversation. But when I first took my leave from education, I just really needed to do some healing. It had been years where it was an abusive relationship with my employer, essentially, and so I was baking bread, and there was something really, like, I was baking sourdough, and there was something really ancestral in that for me. And so I was baking bread and I was just sort of selling it on the side. And while I was doing that, people were constantly like, "Hey, Lisa, how's the bread going? What's going on? Like, tell us about it." It was a regular conversation. The minute I started into advocacy around women's health and talking about perimenopause and menopause, everything went silent around me. No one asked. It was a real, I was like, oh, this is a real social experiment to be to be in the center of. And I was surprised, and I shouldn't have been, I suppose. And at the same time, I was and continue to be, right? Like I continue to be surprised by the lack of wanting to really engage in this conversation when it literally impacts every single element of your life at this stage.
Right. And it's, and women, of course, are experience, everyone is going to experience, but if they have a significant other, that person is also going to experience it in a different way, obviously, but like everyone is experiencing it.
Yeah, and teens as well. There's another example of the shame. I was at this networking event and I was having a chat with a woman who was setting it up, and she was like, "Hey Lisa, talk to I can't remember what his name was. Let's call him Chad. Hey Lisa, talk to Chad for a minute." I turn around, it's this like 6 foot blonde 26-year-old. And I was like, "Hey Chad." He's like, "So what do you do?" I'm like, "I'm a menopause coach." And I can see him like, whoa, how do I get out of this conversation? But I will give it to him. He looked at me and he was like, "Well, what exactly do you do?" So I started talking about what I do and how menopause impacts women. And he was like, "You know, I really wish I had known about this when I was a teenager living at home, because as you're talking, I can hear this reflected in what was happening with my mom." And so teenagers are having their own reconstruction in the brain, and it intersects a lot of time. Like my kiddos are 19 and 17. So totally I see it. It intersects with the renovation and reconstruction happening in our brain. And if we know that about each other, it changes the way that we're going to approach and interact with each other. But when it's just this unknown and this like battle of the hormones, that's not helpful for anyone. So yeah, Amy, absolutely. Like, this is a conversation that everyone needs to have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. For me, what surprised me is just listening to everything and talking with people is the lack of education in the medical field. I mean, I've
Yeah.
talked to, I feel like I'm talking to people when I'm listening to podcasts, but people have said that, your general practitioner, even the gynecologist, whatever, like they have such minimal education about actual like hormones and what's really happening. I think you might have said that, Lisa, because you were saying that the hormone specialists are so hard to come by that they're just like overloaded and they're almost impossible to get to, and they're not covered by insurance, which is awesome. Um, but just, even like and I just can't I can't, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around it. Like my general practitioner is a man, because the only other practitioners in the practice are nurse practitioners who have to run everything by him anyway. But he's cool to talk to, but at the same time, like, I put on 30 pounds since all this crap happened, and he's just like, "How do you want to try Ozempic?" I'm like, "I absolutely do not." Like, please stop doing
Mhm.
that. And so I had listened to another podcast, and the lady, it was uh Marianne had a guest on who was talking about nutrition, and that general practitioners get like 1 hour of nutrition education, and that's mostly like tube feeding. So like it's just like it's mind-boggling that these are the people that we go to, and it makes sense that if you come in with some issue, they're like, "Why don't you go see a specialist? Like, here, have a referral for this, have a referral for this." Why is that? Why is the general practitioner there? That as nice as they are, like, they're just like, "Here, let's go see this person." Like, who has time for that?
Mhm.
Not
Also, Paulina, you were alluding to this earlier, actually not alluding, you outright said it, but the part of the issue with our medical system is that everything is so segmented, and it's like, I just deal with the brain. I just deal with the gut. I just deal with that little,
They're all
where everything is interconnected. And that's
Yeah.
where like functional medicine practitioners
Yeah.
are so helpful in
Mhm.
this conversation, because they come at it from looking at how everything is integrated, right? So
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
I couldn't agree more with you, because as a being medical intuitive, I see inside the body, and I see not only physical aspect of the body, which is like organs and systems, and how the toxins or pathogens affect, but I also see feelings being stored in the body, and I see how they contribute to the disease being formed. And sometimes it blows my mind why the mental health professionals exist in a completely different world from physical health practitioners when they're so aligned. It's so hard to actually separate them. So many mental health symptoms actually have a physical component in them. And if it's not being addressed, you're going to have a hard time dealing with those symptoms. They have to be addressed together. And yet we have professionals just working separately from each other, and they don't want to know what someone else is doing.
right.
And it's so depressing to me to hear Amy saying that when I have a weight gain issues, right? What do they do? What do they offer? Let's just get another pill. God. Instead of addressing the root cause, instead of actually addressing the body's needs,
Right.
we're just going to put you on another pill.
Right. But then again, it's a whole mess. It's just a whole mess, because functional medicine is, root cause is holistic, and it is so great. It is also not covered by insurance.
Yeah,
But
I
the
know.
insurance companies have us, by the little finger. And it's just, it's horrifying. It really is. Like, I keep thinking, like, how do we even go about changing that? Like, so that holistic medicine would be covered by insurances, because they don't want us to be healed. They want the Band-Aid.
Yeah, I think it
That's the
has to do
problem.
with the vicious cycle, the corruption that we have in our system between big pharma, insurance companies, right, and practitioners. And it's much easier for them just to give you another pill,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're gaining weight with all these medications and issues that you're having. You take a different pill. And then if you oh gosh. And it's,
Yeah.
that's a whole different conversation, I'm thinking. But
But it really is integrated with this, because it's the shift of the medical system from treatment to prevention.
right.
Right. Whereas right now, everything is treatment. You have a symptom and we give you something for it, and we don't do anything until something is wrong.
Right.
Where we really need to be at is prevention, is like, going back to those core four. I know it's a like downer. However, it's the reality of how we care for our bodies, and really looking at how do we start caring for them so that we don't end up in the treatment place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so interesting, the timing of menopause and all these shifts, because, we're heading toward our prime, right? Like, this is the prime of our lives, and we're so driven to like find that career and be happy in our lives, and building our wealth. Like, that's a thing. And so we're just driven. We're just like going, and then and then the body like explodes, basically. And I know that you guys are saying, like, let's have a conversation about us, our body, but we're not listening, because we're just like going for that carrot all the time.
Yep.
But anyway. But so have you guys had like great things happen at the same time during this phase? Because I feel like I have somewhat, there's been some crap happen, but um I'm feeling
You're an award-winning podcaster.
an award-winning podcaster, dang it. Um it's not my art. But Oh, it's yeah, right. I mean, last week was 2 years, Andrea.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow, congratulations.
So
Yeah.
awesome. You're a rock star, man. You're a rock
Mhm.
star.
But yeah,
think-
getting like independence and stuff like that, it's all
Yeah.
not bad.
I think for me, it's the not having two fucks to give has been liberating for me because I'm such an empath and a nurturer and a compassionate person that I mean, one of the main reasons why I haven't dated since 2010 is because I don't trust my choices. I've spent my whole beautiful, young, gorgeous body life wasting it on other people that did not treat me well. So I'm like, screw it. You know, like between that and not having a libido, I don't give a shit. I don't care anymore. And I love that I don't care anymore about that.
Yeah, I think, Andrea, liberation is such a great word. It really
Mhm.
is a time of that. And though, leaving my career, because it was not just a job that I did, it was a huge part of my identity.
Yeah.
But it also kept me really contained and very controlled. And the liberation of, yeah, it was really hard going through the separation and divorce from my work. And it also has been this time of great liberation where I get to actually be myself for the first time in, I don't know how long, but probably, since even before university, because when you like head into those academic spaces, you put on the armor of what you need to do to just get through it and to be what that institution wants you to be and tells you that you need to be. And so, like, releasing myself from that armor has been the greatest gift.
Awesome.
Cathy, I know you've had some good things happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my business, Cool Your Sweats, is a COVID baby, and it happened. It was almost coincidental, but what happened was I had this real open book, the clean slate. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then COVID hit, and that actually narrowed my ability of what I was able to do, and that was how I started it. And I was not ready to start my own business had I been even 10 years younger because of my worry about what other people would think or what their reaction would be. Even just talking about clothes, menopause, sleep, and loungewear for people. I now say it with a twinkle in my eye when I'm talking to a 26-year-old male. And I think if I'd been 50, I would have been horribly embarrassed. And I get a lot of people sort of pushing back on how menopause clothes aren't necessary or how it doesn't feel right if I'm showing people the fabric. They'll say it's not soft and silky, and then I'll go into the explanation of why that is. It's just soft. I think 10 years ago, I probably would have curled up into a little ball and hid because I was so sensitive about what other people would think. And now it's like, well, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about now. So I feel a lot more comfortable in the space that I'm in and who I am and how I can go about doing things. And I certainly wasn't there 10 years ago.
Well, and you're doing big deal, like what are they, tours or workshops, conferences? You're doing
Mhm.
conferences.
Yeah. I go to conferences now, and we exhibit our wares, and we talk to people and tell them about what we do and how we do it and how we're different and all that sort of stuff. And that was really difficult for me 10 years ago. I'm not naturally outgoing in situations where I don't know people.
Mm.
So anyway, so yeah, so that actually has been a blessing in terms of having that confidence that I didn't used to have.
Yeah. And I want to add also about Cathy. She is working on this great program where she's trying to get her sleepwear into the hands of breast cancer or cancer survivors or cancer people going through cancer treatment because they're being forced into menopause, and those symptoms are
Yeah, we have that program on right now at hospital at the McGill University Health Center in Montreal. And so we're just collecting data now from the people who are using the nightgowns to see what their feedback is. So yeah, we're really excited about that program and hope we can offer it to other places as well.
Me too.
Mhm.
Paulina, do you have anything to add?
No, I just can say that I'm really enjoying this conversation. And
Same.
what I hear from all of you is this aspect of liberation and stop giving a fuck about what other people think or, say. And I'm just gonna do me, right? I'm gonna do what's right for me, what feels right for me. And I think that's great. And I definitely can relate to this. And I think what I've been passionate about for many years is to help women to connect those dots between what we do on an everyday basis and how it's actually affecting our health, how it's affecting our bodies, or what kind of symptoms your body is having, what kind of signs your body is giving to you, and what it actually means to you. And I'm working on putting together community for women, like a membership where they can come, and meet on a weekly basis and actually talk about those things, those symptoms, discuss and receive actually help and support. And I think that's so important for us women, just to get together and share what's happening, and not just in the physical body, but also right here, because as I said, I think emotional aspect and spiritual aspect of who we are is like inseparable from physical aspect, and we need to look at them together. We need to address them together. And I can't wait to provide safe space for women to actually do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, the physical part of menopause has been difficult, especially, with the doctors not being helpful. No. But the like you're saying, the liberation, the feeling of freedom and like just not giving a crap and like doing what matters to the self is like the best thing that's come out of it. But Lisa, can I have you talk about what you're actually doing a little bit? Because she's working with workplaces, because this is the prime of our lives, and you're saying that people are being forced out of some people are being forced out of their job because of the
Mhm.
I'll let you tell it.
Yeah, so I mean, I do work individually and in groups with women as well. And because as I was finishing my menopause coaching certification, a report came out from the Menopause Foundation of Canada at around the same time. And I've since found the research from the US, and it's very similar. It's just on a much larger scale, obviously, as you have way more population than we do. And one of the most staggering statistics for me was that 1 in 10 women are leaving the workplace at the peak of their career because of unsupported menopause and perimenopause symptoms. And it's costing the Canadian economy $3.5 billion a year.
Wow.
In lost income. And yes, exactly. It is a significant, like that's the number behind the significant issue. And when you look at the leadership gap that exists at the top, in terms of women CEOs and leaders at the highest levels, we know we lose women during childbearing years. We're clearly losing women again during menopause and perimenopause. So of course there is this vacuum of women leaders at the top, which makes it even more challenging to start shifting workplace culture when you don't have people there who are having the experience. So it really, with workplaces, there's a range, but it's really professional learning, policy, and then ongoing coaching and consulting. So professional learning so that everybody in the organization understands what perimenopause, menopause is, the impact that it is having. One of my favorite things when I do these workshops is that I will see the light come on in women's eyes, right? They're having this experience of feeling like they're just losing their minds and that they have no idea what is happening to them, but they are not able to do their job to the way that they were able to do before, or the way that they want to, and the way that they know that they can. They just know that something is not right. And so when I start talking about the symptoms and how they show up in the workplace, I just see this like this light come on where they realize, oh, there is something. And so I can actually do something about this. This isn't just how it's going to be from now on. So that part is key. And then policy is so important, because having it actually in that workplace, so that a woman doesn't have to necessarily go to her supervisor and say, so I'm having perimenopause and menopause symptoms. This is the way it's impacted. Like, no one wants to have a conversation, right? So having that supportive policy in place is important. And it can be from as simple as, can you control the temperature in your workspace? To, is there a place where you can keep a change of clothes and have a quiet place where, if you like during the day have a hot flush or something happens and you need to go and have a moment and change your clothes, that's available. Those are quick, easy things that can literally be done tomorrow, right? All the way to looking at menopause leaves, right? We have child leave. We have in Canada anyway, we get a year when we have children, if we're not an entrepreneur and self-employed. But there's nothing in menopause, and our bodies are going through this same kind of massive shift. Yes, we don't have a small human that we're trying to keep alive, but our bodies are going through a massive shift. So there is a range of policy that we look at that really change the culture, and the key more than anything is around communication. So there's a communication structure that I always share that is around knowing and naming, acknowledging, and then communicating. So one, if I wake up in the morning and I have a wicked hormone headache and I know that it's going to impact me during the day, then the structure that's already in place, because we've practiced it in the professional learning, I go in, talk to my supervisor, colleagues, whoever, and say, hey, I have this really bad headache. So instead of ignoring it, we acknowledge it. This is how you're going to see it show up in me today. This is a sentence that we can say to each other that's going to be safe and supportive. And this is where I might need some help. So everything's laid out right at the beginning, so that, you know, the dominoes that fall when we just pretend everything's fine when it's not. And then disasters and chaos thrive around us. When we have that structure in place, it changes. And yes, I look at it through the perimenopause and menopause lens, and that is a communication structure that is necessary for everybody.
That's beautiful.
It's really cool.
Thank you.
Goodness. So what do you guys think? I mean, obviously, you know, Lisa's starting some pretty good like some really important conversations in the workplace. What do you think we could do? Like, what needs to happen? If anyone has thoughts, because I clearly just lost mine. How do we change this awful path that we're on?
Well, I think, Amy, you actually are doing the right thing by hosting a bunch of women who have experience in this area already, talking about it and bringing it out into the open. And yes, there are a ton of menopause podcasts out there, and some will resonate with women and others will, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think that the more that we talk about it and the more that it appears in the media, the more normalized the whole conversation becomes. And it becomes less of a stigma, and people are able to talk about the symptoms a little bit more and what's happening to them, and not feel embarrassed or shamed about it. It's just like, you know, we go through puberty, we all know it, we all accept it, and now this is the other end of puberty. This is the exact opposite. So I just think that what you're doing is the right thing to do, and we just have to have more of these conversations. And in my case, it's too late for me. Save yourselves. But definitely the younger generations will benefit from this and benefit from hearing people who've already been through it or who are going through it now realize, oh, this is just a normal part of life. And it won't be as big a deal as it was for my generation.
Right. Well, I mean, what you're doing, Cathy, is taking that torch, you know, from your pain of your the hardest thing, one of the harder things that you dealt with, and finding a way to make it better for someone else. I think that's
Yeah, because I got so pissed that there was nothing available. Like it was just another nail in the coffin of, are you kidding me? Are we this invisible? We turn like 45 and suddenly nobody's interested in us anymore for any reason. And I just got so angry, and I just thought, this is appalling. Someone has to do something about this. And so that was how I really started that's what ignited me and got me into gear. It was just the lack of selection and the lack of understanding about what was available.
yeah.
I want to add to this, as when I was reflecting on these aspects of our society, as I'm writing with this book, I realized that part of the problem is patriarchal culture that we live in, right, in a society, and fact that our worth, our value as women is actually going down as we age. I don't know if you noticed that, but it is reality we live in. That's why so many women are obsessed with concealing the signs of aging. Oh God, nobody should see my gray hair. Oh, nobody should see that I have some wrinkles, right? How obsessed we are with keeping the appearance just to delay as much as possible the drop of our value. And that's most women's experience.
That's really deep. I mean, thank you for putting that to words.
Yeah. And I can speak on that on another level, like a deeper level, or one more layer of it is, I'm 58. I'm still looking for full-time work because being in entertainment, COVID totally screwed up my life in Orlando. And hence why I had to move back home into the family house in Ohio. And I have had this last 4 years, I have constantly been searching for full-time work. And I am searching for stable work, that's may not even be in my field, but I've got a lot of skills, but I am now technically overqualified. So I'm not only invisible because I'm older, but I'm also like, I'm lacking in their brain because I'm older, but I'm lacking in their brain because I have too much experience. I'm massively overqualified. And so it plays into their fears. Oh, you're going to want to come into this job and tell me what to do, or you're going to come in for a couple of years and then you're going to retire. And I'm like, no way. I was like, the generation
to retire ever.
I was like, retire, Rishmeyer, like who gets to frickin' retire anymore? I'm like, but it's just very interesting. Like literally in an interview, somebody said to me, I hope you understand that these positions don't require 30 plus years of experience. And I said, no, but I sure can't imagine it would hurt, would it? So we're being discounted for two different reasons. You're either too much or you're too little. They just don't want us now. They just want us to go away. And also in the United States, more and more of our rights to our own lives and our own bodies are being taken away every single day. And some of the people doing it are women. And that's one of the disheartening parts of being an American citizen right now. So I think the answer to your question, Amy, is exactly what Cathy said about I just want to applaud you for doing this. I got so stupid excited when I was in my car at Trader Joe's when you were like, is anybody interested? I was like, fuck yeah, I am, Amy.
I'm up.
I was like, and I did. I texted you from that parking lot before I even left. I was like, count me in. So that I think I've always been the kind of woman who had female friends. Some women are not, but I think our strength is in our friendships, in our collaborations, in our discussions, in our support of each other, that it's a bond that I think is so incredible. And I think that's one of our massive strengths, is when we stick together and when we share with people, because when I first started suffering, I literally was seeing all these things scrolling on my phone, and whether it's Facebook or TikTok, that it was, this was even before TikTok, that it was all men trying to tell women about menopause. And I was like, no, one, I don't know you, but two, how can you tell me about this? and I'm not going to open up to you. Like I would listen to a woman, and I kept saying out into the universe, like, are there any women out there who are knowledgeable about this that are willing to share without having me subscribe to a monthly subscription? Like, can there be some freaking general, it's like cold fusion. Can we just put cold fusion out there for the whole world to have? It's like, it's crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with you about the, banding together and just, the collaborations and stuff like that. And that's, I mean, for me, like I am not afraid to be vulnerable to a fault. Like I want to talk about what's going on. Like I had this um my mom passed away 8.5 years ago, and like I was just like, why do people not talk about grief? Like for real. Like the bereavement group I was in was like 4 people. Like,
Mm,
and I'm looking at the obituaries and people are dying all the time. Like, how are people dealing with this? Like, I just don't understand. And, so, and now I'm just like, screw it. Like,
mhm,
this is happening and this is a big thing. This is a big change.
mhm. And it affects your body too. I've got a really close friend now that's been having bad back problems, to the point like debilitating, where he can't even do work and stuff. And he's luckily he's got a not surgery aggressive doctor who he's been going to. So he's been doing PT, he's been doing massage therapy, and actually either his PT or massage therapist, one of them is an actual therapist as well, a psychotherapist. And he's realized now that it's not just the PT he's doing, but the talking he's doing with this person about that he's never really been able to grieve the death of not only the death of his father and his mother-in-law, but the hellish experience getting up to their death.
Yeah.
And like he literally went from his dad's funeral back to work that day,
Mhm.
that same day, because work demanded it. And so he's finding out that it is manifesting physically in his body, and he's getting better now that, thank God he didn't have a surgery happy doctor, you know. So it does, the body remembers everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Andrea, oh, sorry, Paulina, go ahead.
No, I just want to agree. Definitely, I can see that too. How the feelings that we suppress in our body, we don't process them, we don't give them space, and then they're gonna show up as a physical symptom, because sometimes that's the only one way how body can draw our attention to those unprocessed feelings, unprocessed grief, or resentment that been stored in the body for many years.
Mhm.
And by the way, failing back, I see it's such a common symptom when we don't process grief, or when we experience trauma or loss, when we lose our parents. By the way, it was my experience too when I lost my father. Within a few months, I just fall with some herniated disc. And they told me, like, you're like barely 30 years old. How did that happen so early? And I was like, I don't know, you tell me. But the problem is that when we lose our parents, yeah, they are support for us, right?
Mhm.
And when we lose them, there's so much pressure on us in life. What do we do right now without guidance from our parents? And sometimes we collapse under this pressure. And so that's why I think it's so common, and we do have to address those feelings. They are such an important aspect of our lives. We have to give them room.
Paulina,
Yeah.
I wish I could see what you see. I'm so curious now. I did not know that medical intuitive was a thing. And so when you said,
Well, I agree. I didn't know either.
so you can literally see feelings bottled up, like how that, oh man, that's so crazy. Cool.
It's cool.
Mhm. Yeah, Paulina, I was going to say, when my mom died, I described it as, it feels like you have one less root in the ground, right? And this root is like out and waving, and it's raw, and it's not getting the nutrients into the tree that's necessary. And over time, that root finds a new way of being, but it takes that time to really process and give to it. Amy, like you said. And One other thing I wanted to say about what we need to do is that there is a lot of advocacy work that needs to happen. So yeah, like the podcasts that are happening, conversations, yes, and we need advocacy and legislation at the federal level around funding for women's health research, right? So that the dollars are being put in to study how our bodies actually work. And then I had Lauren Sharon on my podcast. Her episode is coming out next week during Menopause Week. And she's from the UK. And so they're a little bit ahead of us. There's still lots of work to be done there, but she's been doing this menopause in the workplace support for over a decade.
Wow.
And the many organizations and businesses in the UK have menopause policy in place. And they've been going through the human rights legislation, but we do need some specific legislation for this aspect to make sure that there are standards for what needs to be in place to make sure that women are supported, because it's the structural elements that really need to shift and change.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm looking forward to that next week.
Vote, 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 vote.
Right? To learn all about it and just
We'll
gosh,
we'll be the suffragettes instead of suffragettes. We'll be suffragettes.
oh gosh. Wow. Thank you guys so much for doing this with me. I just feel like it feels really good to be able to say things out loud. It really does. And I know there'll be people that will hear it that will just be like, oh my gosh, that's what it was. That's what it is. So thank you so much for helping me do that. And Andrea, I want to I so we've kind of given the highlight to Lisa and to Cathy because I know what they're doing. And Andrea is in her newfound, like, I don't give a fuck. She was on my podcast as well. And she was talking about how she wants to create this like haven at her parents' house and like teach people how to be in nature and to appreciate everything. And I just want to just shout you out for that because
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you. Now I just need a full-time job so I can actually purchase the home for my mom and make it come to fruition. So people hire me.
Right.
Yeah.
And Paulina, oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining. I did not know anything about what you did, and I'm so excited and I'm so fascinated by all the functional medicine stuff. I'm just like, this is like new information for me this year, and I am so fascinated and I want to learn all about it. So thank you so much for bringing that aspect. And just I think I'm gonna have a conversation with you on the side because I just really want to learn more about what you do.
Let's do it.
But does anyone else have anything that they want to add before we close up?
No, just thank you for doing it. This is a great way to spend the evening.
Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. So, to listeners, people who are listening or watching, like if you have questions, I'm going to add everyone's contact, links or whatever, in the show notes, and I want you to ask questions. So, send me a DM or find Lisa or Cathy or Andrea or Paulina, like find them and ask questions. Ask me questions and I'll reach out. I have no problem doing that. And just be well, talk about it and advocate for yourself. If there's anything else that I'm missing, please shoot it out, you guys.
Did great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Menopause out for now. Where's my record? Okay. Funny. Okay, so there's the blooper. Just kidding.
Where's the cat?
I don't know. She's probably in bed. I can't find the record stop. Here, pause.